Well, finally, after more than a year of school, work, tests, life in general, I finally made another, hopefully good video. Please clap. Okay, so I know I shouldn't really pay attention to view numbers, but I noticed a fun little trend with some of my videos. The second most viewed are those with YouTubers and or clickbait titles involved, which I should have expected since that's how about 90% of YouTube gets attention. However, my most viewed projects by a large margin are A Furry Adventure and How to Date Your Dragon. Now, I'm no dummy, I know exactly what this means. You all really like games that aren't that intense. I get it, I enjoy a simple visual novel or point and click game every so often too. So, I'm gonna give the people what they want. I hope. First up, we've got The Pirate's Fate. This was a visual novel released in March of 2018 after a successful Kickstarter where they raised over $15,000. This game has you playing as a character named Mila, which, by the way, is a name I've heard said 3 different ways.
Mila.
She's a cat person, but that matters for literally only about 20 minutes, as this game focuses heavily on transformation. Every character becomes something else at some point during this game's many, many different routes. Speaking of other characters, you've got a whole pirate crew full of different and ever-changing faces. There's Darius, the rugged ship captain doggo. Next, there's his first mate, a bat lady named Morgana. She's a binch. Finally, there's Liko, a small little cartographer woofer. He's a binch too, but the other kind. Later, you also recruit Tam Tam, a lizard that is 100% horny on main. The game begins with Mila waking up on an unknown pirate ship, where Darius says they found her adrift after her ship was destroyed, and she coincidentally has a magic coin thing that they want. To make that even more suspicious, Liko even explicitly says, "Maybe we sunk your ship or something, I don't know." But don't worry, these suspicions are never brought up again, even though they 100% should be. So it turns out that Mila's magical coin is part of some kind of giant collection, and whoever collects them all can change the entire world. Somehow. On the way to collecting the next coin, with Mila deciding to tag along, they come across an opposing pirate crew consisting of a bird and 2 little bunnies, all of whom would stab you given the opportunity. So would Morgana, actually. I'll cut you! The game actually has a surprising amount of variation. Each big choice just straight up splits the story into different paths. Some where the main characters die, some where you recruit one of the villains, and some where Morgana becomes fat. But every route will have someone change forms somehow. The transformations in this game are kind of cool, and pretty much the main drive of the whole thing. Every change has its own little sequence to go before it, and I'm actually really impressed with how many different art profiles were made for each of the main characters. They have their normal OG animal poses, and they also have poses for all their transformations. Also, I can't help but mention my favorite part of the game. The romances. Near the end of each route, you have the opportunity to put the moves on any of the other crewmates that are still alive. As far as I can tell, there's not really any condition that needs to be met for any of them. You just have to say, "Come here, you big furry hunk of flesh." The best one's definitely the bird pirate, though. He asks you to pose nude for a painting, and then it's just like, "I don't actually know how to paint. I can't believe this really worked." And then Mila just goes, "I know." Overall, The Pirate's Fate isn't bad. It's actually pretty entertaining, especially if you like transformation stuff and murder, because there's a lot of both. Almost in equal amounts, actually. Huh. Next up on my list is Nicosia, a Taiwanese dating sim, and one of the few romance visual novels I've amassed in this glorious list of mine. For this one, you get to take the role of Lin Tian Liao, a gay furry who's really into buff cats. And no, that's just not me being blunt as a joke or anything, it's explicitly stated. One day, our cat lover gets lucky, and is blessed by a clouded leopard to be able to see and talk to spirits and gods. Now, here's where it gets fun. This game gives you 3 potential romance options, each of them being a cat man. The first one is your super swole guardian tiger, who wants nothing more than for you to ditch both school and your dream of dancing just to go back home and look after a shrine. The second one is the clouded leopard that gave you the power, and can't speak Taiwanese very well, who wants you to ditch both school and dancing to come to a different land so you can warn his people of an impending doom. Then finally, there's this leopard cat that's possessing your senpai in order to convince you to ditch both school and dancing to come to another land to watch after a shrine so he doesn't die. Fun bunch of felines, these ones. The entire game is mostly just them nagging you to go do what they want, while you just keep pushing their demands off because you are rightfully too scared to commit to any of them. and that eventually leads to one of them disappearing, one of them trying to kill you, and the last one maybe dying depending on the ending. Unlike Pirate's Fate, this game is pretty linear, lacking any real major deviation until the ending, unless it's one of the bad ends. Because of this, one thing remains fairly consistent among the playthroughs. You die. There are a surprising amount of ways for your character to be killed off and end the game prematurely, or at the very least almost die and get a bad ending. In one ending, an NPC dies, and you just tell one of the cats to possess him and pretend to be him for the rest of his days. It's kind of funny in a weird way. Like this buff dragon, thinking that you see him as a friendly old ant instead of, well, a super buff semi-nude dragon. One interesting addition to the game are these little lore tidbits that popped up every so often. For someone who knows literally nothing about Taiwan except it's a place and it exists, these are kind of nice little bits of information to help me understand the terms, culture, and mythology of the place. Some were actually pretty interesting to read, too. Overall, though, I actually think I enjoyed this one. I even got a few of the endings for it. For the most part, the main reason I recommend it is because the game's free. Sure, the Steam version has a lot of fade to black or cropped moments, considering it's originally a much lewder game, one of the lewd scenes actually being really out of place because it's in the middle of a life or death situation, but hey, it's still free entertainment. The art's pretty, story's not half bad, and it doesn't take that much time to commit to. If you really want to support it, you can go grab some of the game's DLC or some of their merch, like these cat body pillows that I can only show you the upper half of for fear of YouTube banning me. So yeah, I'd have to give this one a solid good. Real quickly, just going to touch on two other, also free-to-play visual novels. The first one is Second Chance, a visual novel that I didn't even open, because about half of the preview images Steam gave me as a background were straight-up porn. Also, my computer gave me a warning before opening it. Needless to say, I didn't even give this game a first chance. Next up is Amoris. This game lets you design your own character, and it's amazing, because one of the defaults you can go with is Fernando the Closet Furry, and you know I had to go with this one. I mean, just look at this stud. I didn't play too long though, the game just didn't hold my interest that well. There were also too many things I have to not show for fear of getting a takedown notice. So moving on, we've got Creature Romances, Kokone Kokoro. This appeals to the crowd that is super into wanting to date a monster, with the main love interest being a grasshopper girl, your best friend a scary skull guy, your sister a bat thing, and your teacher an atrocity. All while you, the human, pretend nothing is wrong with any of this and only care about kissing her mandibles. The plot is very basic, quick, and not that great. You're an absolutely garbage person who sucks at school, and your smart grasshopper crush wants to move to a university way outside your league. There's only one choice you can make in the game, and two of the answers result in your death either by strangulation or getting your organs sucked out. But the remaining option lets you kiss your bug GF. However, I have to say that the best part of the game is definitely the voice acting. These were clearly recorded with someone's personal mic, and you can even hear the fan going in the background of a couple of takes. And while this game is mostly in a language I can't identify because I'm bad at languages, there are several instances of English being used, and it's amazing.
Good luck.
Up next is Major Minor, a furry visual novel made by a guy named Clace. It starts out by having you wake up in space, talking to this hyena, dog, I don't know. He asks for your name, and, being uncreative, I went with the default first name. I was then promptly called out on it. Alright, fine, you don't want me to pick the default names? Well, I'm changing last name to last name. How do you like that, nerd? This guy tells you that you've got the power to shape the world or something. I don't know, it didn't really make much sense. Then you wake up on a train because you won a Meet a Pop Star contest, and this neon squirrel suddenly comes up and starts screaming in your face about how much of a weeb he is. You also meet this ferret guy who just radiates a calls you bitch to your face energy, and has the attitude to back it up. Relish in this, as it will quickly be revealed that these are some of the last sane conversations you will ever have in this game. We go to a maid cafe and try to resolve a relationship crisis between the bench ferret and the Neko girl, meet a small boy, and then learn that the idol you came here to meet died in a mysterious strangling accident. Man, that's one weird way to do a self-insert. And interspace between all of this is some kind of political conflict in another fantasy world where everyone's double-crossing each other worse than Game of freaking Thrones! So basically you learn that you're actually useless, but also important somehow, while also flip-flopping between political intrigue and a gosh dang action movie. 1 second you're panicking because another guy just got murdered and you're locked inside a building fearing for who could be next, and then the next you're suddenly being told that the Emperor is good. No bad. No good. No bad. No good. Ah shoot, now you have to save one of 2 people from a bomb and whoever you don't choose dies. And ah shoot, now you're back in Fantasyland and you get stabbed by a magical sword and hyena and the people all around you are dying. And then you somehow do some weird going back in time self-fulfilling prophecy. Now you're stuck on a freaking spaceship. God damn it. So yeah, the game has a lot of mood whiplash. It either drags on forever with nothing happening, or a million things happen at once and you're struggling to process them. Honestly, the story's kinda fun and has a lot of choice variations and effects. Personally, I preferred the segments in modern day Japan. It was a lot more fun being in the thrilly, who dies next, crazed killer, checkmate kind of situation than a, who can you really trust, kind of one. This visual novel is also really interesting with how you get the true ending too. You have to meet a certain amount of flagged events, such as making a certain choice, hearing someone's backstory, etc. You don't need to get all of them in one run, you just need to get enough of them by the time you reach the finale. And any flags that you get in your inevitably failed first run get saved for the next one. Finally, we've got Winds of Change. I'm actually kind of bending my own rules with this game. Usually I don't like talking about things that are still in early access. But I'm making an exception here purely because it fits the theme of the video, and is also made by Clace. The game starts off with you waking up in a burning town, where everyone around you is dying, and this guy and girl are yelling at you while you're just staring at them blankly. Then this big guy dies and gets his soul stolen. But don't worry, all of this turns out to be a future vision / dream / something, and is actually the most exciting thing that will happen to you for the next 6 hours. That's right, for the next few hours of your life, this game is all about walking and exposition. So, if you had trouble telling what animals people were in Major Minor, hoo boy, this game is going to be fun. Like, what the heck is this thing? There are several party members you get in the game. Fortame, Valessa, Ulrich, Pro, Domek, and this guy that has spoils involved. And man, these guys love to talk. Required talks, side talks, heart-to-heart talks, talks with each other, talks that happen far away from the party, and a whole lot of talks that don't matter. Here is one, just one conversation tree, with a character very early on. And no new relevant information was learned. Speaking of talks, I had an issue with Major Minor, but especially with Winds of Change, where Clace feels the need to show you every plot-relevant conversation happening in the background. Usually these are kept hidden until after a big event happens, so the big twist or villain reveal is left as a surprise, but it's kind of hard to be surprised when you're either heavily encouraged or forced to view the events that just spell it all out, and that your character will have no way of knowing. It's just kind of a story pet peeve for me. Sure, there are still some surprises that happen, but the story-heavy medium like visual novels should really leave some things until after your character learns of them. So anyway, the story is that your character, this psychic person, sees a vision of their town burning down and teams up with a band of rebels that are trying to overthrow the Triumvirate, a group of godlike beings whose names some people can't agree to pronounce. You take this cool magical god sword thing, spend hours walking around until you meet the rebels, and then spend another couple hours just chilling with them until plot happens. There's also this Sovi guy, who I really like. He's cool, he's a villain, and he's my friend now. The best part comes when you reach the points of the game that aren't finished yet. All of the voiced lines stop, and you get these fun little placeholder characters. I love them. There's also this kind of morality system with purity and corruption, and also a troop morale count, but I don't think we've gotten to the point where we can see that stuff play out in full yet. Because, you know, game's unfinished at the moment. So in the end, what did I think of all of these bad boys? Well, my verdict, despite the criticisms, is that these are all in fact good boys. So, if you've got any interest in any of these games, go ahead and give them a shot. They're mostly fun ways to kill time, and boy howdy did I kill a lot of time with these. Like, basically a full year's worth. Well, time to crawl into my hole until I find my next source of motivation. See ya everyone!